Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to see all of you here. My name is Cameron Dennis. I'm the president and founder of the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that accelerates blockchain education, development, and adoption, primarily at universities, but around the world. And today we have a very, very special guests. And Sebastian, I'll actually let you take it away. Sebastian is the president of the Blockchain Club at Carnegie Mellon. And yep, take it from there.
Awesome. Is John here or not sure? Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm the president of blockchain at the CMU Blockchain Group. And with us today, we're going to be having an awesome conversation with Opolis about the future of self-employment and how blockchain-based employment cooperatives can really make the experience of being a freelancer or whatever you want to call it a lot better. But first, before we go any further, I'd like to have everyone introduce themselves.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm John. I'm the founder of Opolis, also founder of ETH Denver, the world's largest Web3 hackathon and community festival. We just in February hosted 31,000 people from 94 countries in our virtual event, fourth installment. So most of my background is in HR tech and employment systems. So I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. So as much as I've built companies and things, I see myself as a solopreneur, just like, you know, we're sort of building for the future of work.
Awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed the event. We got some comments going on over here.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Josh?
Hi, I'm Joshua Lapidus. I'm the membership steward at Opolis, co-founder of Pool Party. That's a DAO and DeFi combo. And I'm also the chess steward of ETH Denver and founder of Chess DAO. I came to the blockchain space via enterprise sales, driver growth at Lyft, and I too live in the freelancer economy of the DAO world, working in DAOs like DAO House and Raid Guild.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. And we're also joined by two other members from CMU Blockchain Group. Chanel, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Chanel. I'm a fairly new member of the CMU Blockchain Group, but I do have pretty extensive background in freelance economy, so I'm really excited to talk to you two, John and Joshua.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
And Ishka.
Yeah, I'm Ishka, and it's nice to meet you all. I'm a sophomore at Carnegie Mellon, again, a part of the CMU Blockchain Group, and I got involved in blockchain last year, mostly on the business side of it, because I'm super interested in entrepreneurship, and I like to explore how blockchain can serve as ways to improvise business processes per se. So I really like the work you're doing, and I'm excited to be with you here today.
Awesome, cool. So one of the things, okay, so now that we've introduced ourselves, I think we want to start by talking a little bit about why do we think individual employment, self-employment, being, a solopreneur, digital nomad, whatever you want to call it, is going to be more and more a big thing in the world. I mean, we already see the rise of the gig economy with stuff like Uber and Postmates and stuff like that as being like, oh, you need a job? Well, then go deliver for Postmates is like a common thing that people do. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. So maybe share your thoughts about why this is the future.
Also, just to set the context a little more, freelancing in America has a huge impact on the US economy. Right now, it makes up almost $1 trillion of the GDP, which is about 5%. Though 5% seems like a little, that's a similar size to the entire information sector as a whole.
Well, go compare that $1 trillion to most countries.
Mm-hmm. And
like, it's huge, it's massive.
Right, and furthermore, right now there's actually a 60 to 40% split between freelancers who choose freelancing over traditional jobs because they want to, the 60% is people that choose freelancing because they want to, and actually 40% are people that choose freelancing because they need to. This is because of personal circumstances like health reasons, caregiving duties, etc. And then lastly, a figure to leave you all with is 35% of the American workforce right now freelances.
Yeah,
Wow.
in some capacity. So I actually have a slide on this. You want to see it?
Yeah, go for it.
So we talk about this quite a bit. Okay, let's see. Second screen. That's the one that I want to share. Or a Chrome tab would be even better. Okay, tell me if that comes up. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so it's interesting because so some your statistics are actually correct. So good job. You're totally like dialing into this. But imagine how many more independent workers we would have if they didn't have to get stuck in a W-2 job. And here's the reason why I say this. 70% of people who sit in W-2 jobs today are actively disengaged. They hate the work they do. 70%. 7 out of 10 people you know are miserable in what they're doing. Now, when you really unpack why they stay, a lot of it has to do with the perception of the safety net, right? So the safety net being healthcare insurance, and I'm mostly talking about the US right now, but healthcare insurance, other kind of fringe benefits, time off, and just really the consistency of having that consistent paycheck. So it's the bird in the hand is better than 10 in the bush syndrome. Now, when you really get down to it, and you really look at the social components of why people are moving from W-2 work to solopreneurism or freelancing, gig work, whatever you want to call it, it's because they value different things. Okay, so you got to rewind the clocks all the way back to the Industrial Revolution and post World War II and the Great Depression. So what were the values of the workforce back then? I'll tell you, it's really simple. It was safety and security. So everything was architected to give workers safety and security as compared to what they were able to do for themselves, before this particular epoch of our economic history. So things like pensions and even things like healthcare insurance, these were not standard components to employment. These were competitive advantages for very innovative companies, and they became table stakes, and a lot of it became legislated, right? So it went from sort of fringe benefits, competitive advantage, to now it's law. Now everyone's got to do it. So what happened though is the framework was designed to really cater to safety and security, legislatively, compliance-wise. When you think about the dynamic of unions and collective bargaining and all these different things, it was all about making the workers' lives better, right? And how you create retention and all of these different things. Now, fast forward 50 years, 60 years, through what I call the MBA generation in the 60s and 70s into what is today the technology age, and you've really got a complete shift. You've got a complete shift happening where people don't value these things anymore. Safety and security is a mirage. Like, really? I mean, we've got the financial crash of 2008 and COVID that prove very clearly that loyalty isn't a thing. Loyalty isn't a thing when it comes to employment anymore. It's sort of gone. So companies are burdened with a really expensive activity now of employment, and costs have only gone up while corporations are looking to mitigate that. So anyway, the trend line that we really look at is the percentage of the total workforce that actually is participating in freelance or self-describes as self-employed. This number is going to swell to 90 million by 2028. That, if you look at what the total workforce in America is, it's 160 million people. So we're talking about over half of the U.S. workforce.
That's a lot.
Is going to be.
It's huge.
A lot.
Yeah, and that's going to be a lot of people that we're going to have to figure out new ways to figure out how to support them in an economy. Yeah, Yeah. So what do you think are so I guess maybe to shift topic, maybe now that we've kind of set the stage, what do you think are the main barriers that exist to kind of really making that shift in the U.S. economy right now?
The whole corporate architecture.
Yeah, same more.
I mean, so it boils down to this. If you look at the reasons why blockchain is a sport, is catching wind, it's a social movement, not a technology movement. So what do we talk about? We talk about disintermediation, decentralization. We always talk about the banks being bad guys because they extract all these fees. We talk about Uber and Lyft not paying their people just proportionately because they have to make their profits. Well, in our off-white paper, we talk about this concept called the tragedy of the boardroom. So everybody's heard of the tragedy of the commons, but the tragedy of the boardroom is something we, us and our research team coined. And what it describes is at scale, traditional corporate mechanisms become divergent from their communities. In other words, their customers and what's really good for their constituencies isn't really what's good for the boardroom. So I'll use Uber as an example. Okay, Uber used to talk about in the very, very early days of Uber how they're going to free all the taxi drivers from the big bad mob bosses. They're going to pay them more, and then the riders are going to pay less, and everyone's going to win. And we're going to sit around the campfire and roast marshmallows and sing Kumbaya together. Okay, that's what they used to say. And in the very beginning of it, everything was aligned. So we talk about incentives in terms of economic game design. So incentives were aligned early on. Everyone's benevolent, everyone's behind the ethos, everything's working as planned. But then the company has different motivations. They take on external capital, which comes with strings. They take board directors on that have, by law, fiduciary duty to maximize shareholder profit. So in order to do that, you've got to charge more and pay less, right? Because you've got to it's got to come from somewhere. So I call this zero-sum capitalism. So there is a new version of capitalism that I can talk about if you'd like, and how this structure actually plays into that when it comes to employment. But the TLDR is that we need to evolve from V1 capitalism to V2, which is more, instead of zero sum or competitive capitalism, it's more abundance and positive sum capitalism. And that comes with the requirement of a new legal structure and a new relational dynamic for employment to exist in order for that to be successful. So in other words, our conclusion in our research is you're never going to be able to solve the asymmetry of employment disparity in power and value distribution in the existing corporate employment model. It can't be done because of these are hard-coded problems in the economic game design.
Right.
So just for example, this is why we use a cooperative framework at Opolis, because legally speaking, it has a completely different dynamic when it comes to power and governance distribution and value distribution by nature, right? So it suits much better to the blockchain world than what you'll see in a traditional corporate design.
Right. I saw in your off-white paper, as you call it, this relationship that you outlined between an employer and an employee described as paternalistic. In addition, there's definitely a misalignment of incentives and a structure where lots of decisions around benefits and what's best for the employees those decisions are made behind closed doors in secret. So why is this type of model unsustainable in the future, and why is this fixed in a decentralized world?
Yeah, so by the way, did you read the whole off-white paper, Chanel?
I did. It did take me around 2 to 3. I split it into 2 to 3.
Yeah, it's quite the read. It's why we have it in our nerd stuff section and on our website. So congratulations, I really I admire people that have the courage to take that much time to read it. It's called an off-white paper because it's more of a research manifesto than it is like a specific technical paper. But it really outlines a lot of the kind of core concepts that we're trying to get at. So there's going to be this thing called the great unbundling. Okay, so think about this just for 1 second. Is there any particular correlation to the quality of my health care that I get from my company and my happiness as an employee?
Not sure. No. Wait,
Maybe.
maybe. Possibly.
I mean, but let me ask you this, the secondary question, is there any correlation between my happiness and with my health care and my productivity as a person in the role?
I'd say probably.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe, okay. But what you find is, you know, people outgrow roles, right? So there's this thing called, you know, fluidity or frequency of movement. In a corporate setting, there's no real fluidity. There's no frequency. I'm parked in this like sort of org structure. And why I call it paternalistic is because it's by nature hierarchical and it's subjugating, right? So I'm trading my time and attention to the corporate overlords in exchange for a paycheck and benefits and healthcare and things like that, okay? Now let's say for a second that there's a reorganization and I get moved to a new department. And my dream job, the reason why I started at this company is now gone. Now I might like the company, but like, oh snap, I don't even like the healthcare benefits. I stayed here because I like the role, and now I don't have that role anymore. What are my options? Well, TLDR on that is I don't really have a ton of options, right? I can basically try to, you know, tough it out, maybe find a different transfer internally, or I can go get a new job. Now, all of the prospects of that are pretty scary. You know, I don't want to go deal with any of that, right? So the bottom line is when you really look at this from a macro and you look at the overall data, we've actually found that there is no correlation between long-term happiness and the benefits, because people are really mostly invigorated by the work. And here's why. People aren't just, you know, doing jobs anymore. People, the younger populations especially, are looking for work that aligns with their values. And often in a corporate setting, you don't always get that benefit. So like you're sort of, well, okay, I'm gonna trade my time and attention. I'm gonna get this training, and maybe it'll be really good for me. But they're not finding that they're really that invigorated by it, which is largely why there's this big dissatisfaction curve at 70%, where people are sitting in jobs they don't like. So conceptually, it sounds good, but the reality is the data doesn't support the fact that people are actually happy in their jobs. Largely, they'll stick around for things like benefits just because it's like bird in the hand's better than 10 in the bush. They'd rather not rip off the Band-Aid and go upset the apple cart. They'd rather just stick around and, well, the next one's just going to be just as bad, so I'm just going to do that. So the great unbundling is going to be where you see this separation between benefits and sort of my social safety net, and it won't necessarily be the government doing it. I don't think that's actually the best solution for incentives reasons, economic game design. And then you're going to see my operating life or my sort of income earning attention allocated in a risk managed way. So I'll use Josh as an example, just because he's a total poster child for this. He doesn't just work with Opolis. And notice I said with, not for. It's a very distinct difference. We don't have a hierarchical situation here. He has a role. It's sort of a holacracy, digital holacracy in a way. We have a responsibility hierarchy, but we don't actually have power hierarchy. Josh is completely entitled to do whatever he needs to do to get his job done, and he knows exactly what he needs to deliver. Now, if he doesn't do it, the whole group is going to probably say something to him. You know, when it comes to the project, Opolis will say something to him, but he won't have a boss coming to him. It'll be more of a social sentiment from the group. Now, secondarily, he also allocates a lot of his other time and attention to other projects. So he's getting 3 or 4 different revenue streams. Now, what happens when one of those revenue streams goes away? Nothing. He just has to figure out how to fill that one little slice of his time. So from a risk management standpoint, he no longer is dependent on all of his eggs in one basket, you know, completely dependent on the corporate decisions and whims to decide his outcomes and livelihood. He's doing it for himself. He completely chooses that. And the legal framework that we've set up with Opolis as a digital employment cooperative allows him to essentially replicate the exact experience of employment, but on his own and by his own decisions.
Right. I think that's what we wanted to get into next. Could you help explain to our audience what is this concept that you've created, this decentralized employment organization, and why it's different than a regular DAO?
Yeah, so the main thing about, I'm going to run just through a couple of things here, and I'm just going to switch to a slide here and why this is so important, and I'm going to kind of tee it up, and then I'm going to go into exactly how this works. So the thing that's, when you think about crypto and blockchain as a social movement, what I think of it is actually more of a political movement, but it's not political in the typical sense. It is technologically political and it's social in nature, but it's also going to be implemented in a much different way than traditional governance, and decisions are made in sort of the tyranny of the minority majority, two-party system stuff that we do. This is a new dimension. It's a completely new dimension of political, mutual aid societies built on blockchain has so much potential. Yes, Stefan, they absolutely do. You are correct. So call them cooperative organizations, guilds, whatever you want to call them. These aren't necessarily new concepts. We're just making them new. Back to the concept here, the single common commercial experience. If we're going to get people, regular people, involved in these new social and political systems that allow them to choose from where, with whom, and how much they want to work, talk about liberty, right? What if I was able to allocate my time and attention literally on demand and make a really healthy income and take 3 months off and never lose my health care? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
It'd be really cool, okay? But the road to doing that, you got to look at the whole landscape of crypto and blockchain. Is it DeFi? Is it DAOs? Maybe. Is it NFTs? Probably not. Is it just cryptocurrencies and tokens? Probably not. So what are the real social fabrics that impact most people? Well, payroll is the biggest surface area of any activity that everyone does globally. So when we came to this conclusion, we said, well, look, what if we could build a truly egalitarian public utility infrastructure for employment and benefits on a global basis and let people just opt into it? And then build all the other things on top of it that a person needs to function, like even being connected with work opportunities and deal flow and communities and all the other things that they want to get involved in. Those would be all sort of built as sort of part of the employment Lego stack. But the core framework, that baseline, is compliance, withholding, benefits, employment, and all the different sort of necessary evils that people have to do. So when we built this, let me come down to some of the infrastructure stuff here. Okay, so let me use a story and sort of give you an example of how this works. So this is actually one of our members. Her name's not really Emily, but we just use that for fun. So Emily has been involved in the software development community for more than 6 years, but she's been freelancing for 6. Now, she used to work at a big, let's just call it one of the FANG companies, right? She used to do software development. She had a really good gig, but she had a couple of kids and she's married, and it's really important to her for freedom and flexibility. She needs that flexibility for her family. So she took the leap, but it's come at a big cost. So she's now facing almost $4,000 more per year for healthcare insurance. She's spending thousands of dollars a year on just administering her business. She's juggling 30 projects at one time. She's getting paid in cryptocurrencies and things. It's a very difficult thing for her to manage. It's rather stressful, actually. But is the stress enough to give up the independence? No way. I mean, her freedom and flexibility is the thing that gives her the most value for her family. So when she's joining Opolis, though, what it does is, as an individual solopreneur, she can now plug into a shared services and employment stack that basically replicates that big company experience of employment, simplifies managing her business administratively, but also gives her the typical benefits of group healthcare and all the discounts and group purchasing power, but she doesn't have to give up her independence. She's not subjugated to anyone. It's her employing her because of the legal framework that we have. So she can consolidate all her retirement plans. She can pay herself in cryptocurrency and fiat currencies. She can be compliant with silly laws like AB5 in the state of California, where it forces platforms to hire people as W-2s, which comes at a cost, right? You got to give up control of your time. So she just absolutely loves this. Now, her benefits and how this works is, and I'll get into some, I actually have a different deck that I'll probably pull up to show a few of these, like a couple legal, I'll give you some idea of legal stuff if you guys want to see it and how we do it. But her experience is exactly like what she's used to. So remember safety and security? Remember how I said that that was really important? Yes. Well, it's still important. She just values her freedom over it. So she's choosing, it's sort of the, it's an either or kind of thing. Well, I can have my freedom, but I don't get the safety and security. So it's like, which do I value more? Well, the people that you see freelancing by choice are choosing the freedom. That's what they want. And those that choose to work for a company are choosing the perception of safety and security, even though I don't think it's real. I think it's a mirage. So with this, you're actually getting to see how we're replicating this employment experience. So the employment experience is group healthcare, dental, vision. I can even set my holiday time and pay myself holidays to keep things consistent for me. I can choose to design my employment however I want. Now, all the back office stuff that gets done typically by a sophisticated corporate environment. So let's say, I mean, any company USA, when you work for a company, they're doing all of this stuff for you. The thing that stinks is when you go out on your own, you now have to do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now the shared services stack of the employment cooperative does it for you. So you don't have to, you're not paying huge dollars for accountants and attorneys and stuff. It's basically a 1% consumption fee, and the stack takes care of the rest of it for you. So now your employment, which is hosted by you, looks, feels, and acts just like the typical employment that you would see working for a W-2 company.
I think
we're basically recreating the entire thing.
So it's like you've created a way so that as an individual, I can join this collective. And to some extent, when it comes to choosing between, I don't have to choose anymore. I don't have to choose between security and freedom anymore. To some extent, it's like exactly I can have my cake and eat it too situation.
That's correct. So there's an old principle in an old school business book called Good to Great. If you haven't read it, it's actually a really good read. The guy that wrote it actually did a lot of the research at University of Colorado, and it's a very well-respected book. But there's a concept in there called the tyranny of the or and the genius of the and. So when you look at business models that really succeed, they don't make trade-offs. They do both, right? So Amazon isn't, or excuse me, like, or Amazon or Netflix or whatever. Netflix is probably a better example because I have my criticisms of Amazon. Netflix is cheaper, better, faster. They charge you $13 a month, and they got more content in there than a person could consume in a year. And it's like, whoever thinks about getting rid of their Netflix? Nobody. Why? Because it's like, well, all I gotta do is give up 2 cups of coffee and I can pay for it, right? This was their entire business model. We're not competing with cable. This is an add-on, so we need to make it feel like an add-on. And look at their usership, right? They're in hundreds of millions of people, because they've made it cheaper, better, faster. So in terms of employment, it really boils down to that duality. It's the duality between freedom and flexibility and safety and security. And the real trick is you do both. It's not giving up one for the other. And this is where a community-owned, employment cooperative with, tokenized incentives and value distribution and all of that come into play, because it's not that easy of a thing to build. I mean, I've been in the space for 20 years, and God, it took me 17 of it to really even get the right idea on how to solve it.
John, if I may jump in, I understand the benefits you're providing. They make a lot of sense, but one reason I think that people work in corporate jobs is due to the structure that it provides. And in terms of, what to work, when to work, and how it works. when you talk about incentives using tokens in this, how do you replicate that corporate structure? Because I don't think everyone has the ability to pace themselves or their work appropriately by themselves.
Yeah, you're right. I think this is where so layer 2 of the employment commons comes into. I think this is where the DAO community is going to really come in. So a member of the employment commons could be a member of a dozen DAOs if they wanted to be. So this is really going to be what we call your tribes, right? So your tribe or your tribes are going to be the types of organizations, either DAOs or just other projects or whatever. You'll be working in teams to actually execute work. So I think there's a difference between what I'm talking about is the functional compliance and the legal employment and the tax withholdings and the benefits provisioning and the actual operational side, which is the work itself. So one major prediction that I'll make, though, is right now we measure everything based on time. So everything's measured on time, time-based rewards, just like block rewards, right? Like, but is there really a correlation between your productivity and time?
No, definitely.
There is not. In fact, there's an opposite correlation. Just I actually have a meme in my slide deck here. I'll go back to it here. I love this meme. This is my favorite. My only motivation is not to be hassled and for the fear of losing my job. But Bob, will make somebody work just hard enough not to get fired. So if you haven't seen Office Space, you got to go watch this movie. It's hilarious. This was like a really popular movie back in, I would say maybe the late 90s.
The whole movie is like, I think that movie is great at motivating Opolis's existence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a meme, but it absolutely is. Okay, so back to the point that I was making is when it comes to work, everything's going to migrate from time to task or project. So think about what a current statement of work looks like, right? If I'm a contractor and I'm going to come in and build a piece of software where my team is, we're going to build a statement of work. Gosh, I wish I had it up. I wish I had the demo. I don't know where it is right now, like off the top of my head, and that multitasking is going to be a little hard, but we just literally did this. So I'll give you an example. We're designing a logo badge to be hosted on the exchanges for the work token. Okay. Now, because we're big dog fooders of all this, one of our core contributors to some of our work token launch is Raid Guild. So Raid Guild is a decentralized DAO of workers that basically work together to execute on different projects, either in groups or individually. So
almost like a mercenary guild, but like of coders and designers and like marketers.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to illustrate the question, Ishkan, and how you asked that, it's not in their world about the time, right? We're not managing time anymore. Because if you really go back and look at the social dynamics of Office Space and why it ends up in the meme that it ends up in, it's because it's time-based. If we were managing to outcomes and productivity and rewarding productivity, I mean, think about, just basic game design incentives, right? People are going to be more productive because they're going to be incentivized to be. So in this term, we hired Raid Guild for, a certain amount of DAI to, iterate and build this icon. And there's a couple of people over at Raid Guild that are iterating and doing all of this, and they have a deadline, and they have milestones in between that we're expecting to see different iterations. Now, from their side, operationally, they already know what the expectations of the customer are. So now they just need to work on a team to better manage to the deliverables. And instead of being time-based, like, dude, you're not getting it done. Well, man, I'm off at 5, bro. Like, I don't have time to do that, man. Like, they're not going to do that because they're going to say, look, we have to have iterations done by Monday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Like, we've got to get this thing done. So I think the whole dynamic of expectations and productivity shift. So the notion of, people aren't really good at managing themselves, you're absolutely right, they're not, but that's mostly because we have the wrong incentives. So I think if the incentives get realigned, which they will be, especially through this more mutualistic employment framework, it's basically a reciprocity-based dynamic, right? So once that kicks in, all of our educational systems, apprenticeships, and everything are going to be much better at training people to operate in that framework versus just going and punching a clock and doing the minimum just to get paid. Because that system just creates a whole mess of waste.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if I can follow up on that, you mentioned productivity. Now, if you don't include time
Sure.
as much, then what factors do you really care about when it comes to managing productivity in this scenario? And is the payroll based on the person's productivity in the work they're doing? And can it be?
No, not here. It's not here. It's not here. It's not. In here, we're replicating the traditional compliant payroll mechanism. So with their business, though, like how they're being compensated from their operational duties, that would be up to them to determine. We still have quite a few members that are compensated based on time. They get paid hourly or for a set of hours or whatever. They have. We see all sorts of things. Now, keeping in mind that most of our all of our existing members are probably falling in that bucket of 60% of freelancers who are choosing it, right? So they're already used to doing this. They're used to managing their own time. They're self-starters. They're self-driven. They know how to put together their days. They know how to execute on things they need to execute. So they're already playing the future of work game to a certain extent. It's just going to evolve to basically overtake all employment at some point. Will be task-based.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Better now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I also, okay. So, yeah. So this is awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is really great. One thing I think we might have some more questions about though is how exactly does Opolis do this, or what does the organization actually look like? So, like for instance, like let's say I'm a college student. I have a I have a job offer from Facebook, and I'd much rather be building the decentralized internet than building some code that just makes a search bar load faster or have better targeted ads. What does the actual process of me joining Opolis look like, and and kind of how does it work? How does it legally set up? Can you have organizations itself?
Yeah, can an organization
itself join Opolis, or does it have to be individuals, or other things like that? Yeah, I'm sure you have answers to those, but that was like the big question. Is like, yeah, these are.
I do. We do, of course. Yeah. So one of our core functions is to help people traverse the red pill, right? Like the rabbit hole. Like, okay, if I'm going to go down the rabbit hole, like what the hell do I need to do, right? I don't have any idea. Like, so first off, I would say if any of you guys are considering getting involved in Web3 right out of college instead of going to work for Facebook or whoever, there's a ton of opportunities right now, a ton. And even if you're not technical, so if you're technical, easy peasy. If you're not, community, marketing, sales, back office, there's all sorts of stuff that people can do in the space. So if you're really interested in getting involved in the future of the decentralized world and decentralized work, don't think that you can't get well paid to do this. There is a massive shortage, in my opinion, Josh, not if you agree with me, but there's a massive shortage for really intelligent people that are passionate about building this future. There's a lot of opportunists that come around and go, yeah, that sounds cool. But like when you really talk to them, they're not really that connected to the social and sort of political sort of outcomes of this. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen again. I got a different deck I had to jump into. So this deck is actually, we just launched a partnership with Gitcoin. So Gitcoin has, thousands of different people around the ethereal world. And, a lot of these people are freelancing full time, right? But they can't get affordable healthcare, and managing their business is a pain in the butt. Like, remember this story that I told you about Emily. So Gitcoin is compromised of a ton of Emily's, right? So in terms of like how this is legally set up, so the first thing that you got to know is the Opolis Commons LCA. That's a limited cooperative association. So if you don't know much about cooperative law, I highly suggest that you look it up. And if you're interested in some links or connections, we can certainly offer some of that up. If you're on our website and you go to the nerd stuff section and look at the token paper, there is a section on legal that you can click on a few links that actually give some really good descriptions of how. Here's Josh's apprentice. This is Theo, everybody. Say hello.
Hello.
His
Everyone's
young
saying hello to you.
Padawan. What's up, Theo? Like, we do this all the time. So I have a 4-year-old and she'll be sitting on my lap and we're talking to people, investors or whoever. Work-life integration. It's a thing. So anyway, the Limited Cooperative Association legal framework is a beautiful thing. Now, why do I say that? Because it has so much flexibility to really power the future of these new economic games. And I'm not going to get into all the details, but essentially, every legal entity in the United States has what's called an employer identification number. Now, if you know anything about healthcare insurance, they use your employer identification number to gauge your qualification for healthcare. So the key is that you need to get as many people in a single EIN number as possible. So the cool thing about a cooperative is it comes with an EIN number. So we can now use this entity as the vehicle to co-employ all of our members for group procurement. So we can do collective bargaining on behalf of our employee members without actually having to give up anybody's independence. And yes, Sebastian, it is genius. And I don't say that because I'm the smartest guy in the room. We had some really smart people, attorneys included, contributing to this thing. It took us 3 years to do the research and actually architect this.
But I mean, because like I don't think
So
anything exists like this yet. So this is this is going to be huge.
No, this is okay. So think about what credit unions did to the financial markets in terms of like creating, a whole new vector of opportunity for people that want to, collaborate in the financial world. We are to big payroll and big PEOs as credit unions are to banks, or mutuals are to large insurance companies. But we're, in addition to moving back to a more independent worker world, we're also moving back to more community-owned and community-based frameworks, but just in a much more advanced way, using much better technology tools and financial instruments. So this is a Gitcoin example. So let's say Joshua's company right here, Buffacorn LLC, is his operating entity, right? So this is what he contracts with all of his different folks, right? So under the Gitcoin hood, he might be doing, because he's doing a lot of bounties and stuff, he might be actually working with like a dozen different companies, right? Because he's just fulfilling a lot of different stuff. But all the money comes from Gitcoin to his company. Now that relationship is B2B. There's no employment happening there. So Gitcoin doesn't have to worry about compliance as far as employer or employee classification. And so nobody really cares. It's literally just like doing business with a consulting firm. It might as well be, McKinsey and Company. It literally doesn't matter. It's a business. Is DAI currency from a DAO blockchain? It's from MakerDAO. So if you don't know what DAI is, it's the first decentralized stable currency. Yeah, it's very cool. MakerDAO is actually a stakeholder in Opolis, by the way. And they're one of our community partners. Coalition members. Well, I guess they're not quite a coalition member yet. The DAO's got to still vote on it, but they actually invested through their grant program. So anyway, MakerDAO is a really cool project if you haven't looked at it. So anyway, Buffacorn LLC is the business that's doing business out in the world. Now, as far as anybody's concerned out there, behind the curtain, does it matter how many employees Buffacorn LLC has? No, because it's a B2B relationship, right? Now, behind the curtain, though, what they'll find is Joshua is a W-2 employee of a S-Corp elected LLC. And he's then co-employed with the Opolis Commons LCA. Now, if you're not familiar with what professional employer organizations or PEOs do, PEOs are centralized outsourcing of employment services that basically are B2B. Now, they won't touch individual employees. They won't touch individual, single employee companies. And it's because the unit economics of employing those people don't make any sense. They can't make enough money off one person, so they ignore the solopreneurs entirely. So the plumbing of this service exists, but the companies who could do it, again, the tyranny of the tragedy of the boardroom is set up that their incentives are to go after bigger populations of employees, but also go and get into business with corporations that ultimately make all the decisions on behalf of their employees. Back to one of the earlier questions, right? Chanel asked a question about like, well, how is this, all the decisions are made behind closed doors and nobody really gets to decide. Well, in that dynamic, if I've got 200 employees and somebody comes, or I go to a PEO, I'm negotiating with the PEO on what to offer. And then my employees just have to take what I give them. Right? So they don't get any input. There's no governance decisions. There's no, involvement in that. It's just take it or leave it, dude. You don't like it, go get a new job. That's basically the message. So in this world, though, we're dealing one-to-one. And we're using network effects and tokenomics to incentivize people to refer their friends and activate the network effect from a more emergent order standpoint. If you know economics, you should know the concept of emergent order. If you don't, I highly suggest you look it up. It's a fascinating subject by itself in terms of economics. I'm a huge economics nerd. So like not, in addition to understanding HR tech and systems pretty well, I spent about 10 years studying economics and incentive theory and game design and all that kind of stuff. So sorry, I'm going to nerd out on you, like it or not.
Fine.
That's great. I mean, we're all crypto natives. Nerding out is kind of what we do. So yeah.
It's what we do. I mean, if you haven't been to an ETH Denver, it's pretty much what we do for like a marathon of just nerding. Econ nerds forever. Yes, Stefan, I will nerd out all day, every day about.
I get to hear it all the time.
So I have
that's all
another
I do. Anyway,
question, Jack, I'm
all the time
to this. So does that mean that basically, if anyone who is a part of the Opolis Commons needs to have their own LLC to kind of funnel to set up that B2B relationship, because this relies on the relationship. Right. Okay.
Yes. So it relies on the relation. So how we game the PEO laws, the statutes, is it's a B2B relationship, just like a regular PEO relationship, but it's just so happens it only has one employee. So we're using the same architecture and framework as a typical PEO, except we're using a cooperative association for the employment co-employment, which is community owned, and we're using LLCs that are elected S corps so that they can employ that single person. But it's perfectly legal and it's 100% compliant. So we've had some of the best tax attorneys and legal structure attorneys and cooperative law attorneys in the world look at this, and they're like, had never thought about this particular use case, but this is entirely compliant.
How does taxation work in this case?
Good question. So S corps that are LLCs that elect S corp at the federal level are pass-through entities. So when you look at how LLCs work with respect to individuals, it's pass-through income. So you would basically have a K1 from your entity, or you would have some sort of like a bonus or some sort of event that you would pass the income through to yourself. So in terms of like the actual tax strategy, we leave that up to the individual and their particular tax planner. Eventually we'll have tax planning services built into the stack to help simplify things. It'll be sort of a marketplace, if you will, of tax pros that will be able to, that'll have reputation scores, and they'll be able to be hired on demand. They might even be part of the commons themselves, right? They might even be members themselves. But essentially, we suggest that you talk to a tax professional about the exact situation that you're in. But it's actually pretty simple. When you talk about ordinary income, business income, LLCs are a very easy thing to deal with when it comes to like how they actually work. Usually, though, the one difference is that you'll have 2 tax returns. You'll have one for yourself and one for the entity under a lot of circumstances.
Awesome.
I see.
So before we before we get into audience questions, I just wanted to get your opinion on what are the social implications of Opolis type structures in the future? When you take away that barrier of forcing people to choose between fulfilling work and financial freedom for them, and freedom to do fulfilling work for themselves, and the cushy jobs and stability that large companies provide, what does the future of work look like to you?
So there's a term that some people use called the passion economy or the purpose economy. So I often think about implications of current game design systems, economic incentives. What are people doing? What's the outcome emotionally, physically, intellectually on a person? Think about the implications of 70% of people being dissatisfied in their work. Okay, so if we were to take an overall, let's call it the joy quotient, and we just said that, like, of all the people in the American workforce, how many, like, what does the curve look like for the joy quotient? Where are people feeling really connected and really purposeful and really passionate? 70% of them aren't even on the curve, not commercially. So there's a major misalignment where people are, allocating their time and where they're actually what they're actually should be doing. Okay, so I call this phenomenon, the misintegration of work. So where we're doing things that, yes, we're getting paid for it. It's a means to an end. We call this the paycheck culture at Opolis, but it's not really invigorating me. Okay, so the youngest generation, your generation, in my opinion, is going to have so many options that, like, you're going to pick and choose where you want to put your time that fit in line with things that you're passionate about. You're going to build things. You're going to invent things that are part of your individual, unique creativity. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that as an integrated person, as somebody who does what he loves and is very passionate about it, I don't work a freaking day in my life.
Yeah.
This is just life to me. Okay, this is what I was built to do. I don't compartmentalize my life with friends and church and work and family. It's a work-life integration thing for me. So the conclusion to that is, when you create a framework that gives people real choice without having to give up stuff, right? I don't have to give up my time, my freedom to get the good benefits, or to get good compensation, or to get good work opportunities. I can do that on my own. When you allow people to align their time and attention with the things that they're passionate about, think about the multiplication of the joy quotient that would happen. Think about what that does for things like depression and anxiety and addiction, the social malaises that we have that are really byproducts of people who are sort of lost. I'm not judging them for making bad, who's going to do jobs nobody's passionate about, please. I'll answer that in just a second, Marina. I really do think that we can have a rising tide raises all boats kind of situation in the work world, where these kind of public utility infrastructures for employment give people the choice and the appropriate egalitarian tool sets to make decisions for themselves that ultimately define their own success. We shouldn't have to define success economically exclusively. We shouldn't have to define success based on just freedom and flexibility. Define it however you want, but we need a better system to create choose. So I really do think that this is a major cornerstone to reshaping the human experience. And really tackling things like systemic depression and systemic, addictions of various types, and anxieties and other, mental health issues. I mean, these are really big deals that we just don't talk about, and you can't solve it through therapy, because they go back to the 70% job that they hate. Like
Totally.
you're actively doing the thing that's making you unhappy, which really what it is, it's in my experience, it's these sort of negative outcomes that we experience, these feelings, these emotional challenges are really just byproducts of our soul and our body telling us that we're out of alignment. We're not doing the things that we should do. You know, our creativity isn't being expressed, because I will tell you, when I see people's creativity being expressed in real time, I don't see a lack of joy. I don't see it. I see happy, invigorated, integrated people that are just expressing their uniqueness in ways that no one else can do. It's like a human NFT of uniqueness. It's everyone's got it, but we have done a really piss poor job at unlocking it. So to answer the question about who does the jobs that nobody wants to do, well, there's always teenagers. Okay, there's always, you know, apprenticeships, or, you know, there is always going to be a means to an end. And then there's this thing called automation. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the predictions by some of the sort of future of work thought leaders, but there's a guess that, you know, the jobs that we have today, of the 160 million jobs, half of them are going to be gone within 20 years through automation. So that includes all the jobs. So the jobs that are of the future haven't even been invented yet, a large amount of them. So we're just going to, as Vitalik Buterin, my friend, would say, he's like, yes, blockchains are going to automate and eliminate a lot of jobs, but build a lot better ones. So I think we've got to get out of the scarcity mindset and worry about, well, what are they going to do? It's kind of like talking to coal miners about, you know, saving their jobs, when that's not really the problem. The problem is we have an education skills gap where the coal miner doesn't have access to tools and the means to actually be good at something else. So how do we actually equip those individuals to work globally so they can contribute to, you know, this emergence of work without having to give up their lifestyle where they live and everything else? Like, we shouldn't have to create the next, you know, dust bowl of migration just to find work. We have the technology and the rails to do it. We just need to close the skill gap, provide better educational opportunities, reorganize the way we do higher education. No disrespect to Carnegie Mellon, but like apprenticeships and more targeted skill set training is going to be the way of the future.
Well warranted, as they are for any public university, or just any university, really. Yeah, thank you so much. That was awesome. That's the tea. I'm pretty sure that's what we all wanted to hear, and that's definitely agree that that's the future, and that there are so many implications to this, where the jobs that need to be created in the future, I think one thing we could also say is that I don't know if people will create them unless they are free to do so. And I think this is a really promising way to actually do it, because this isn't just like pie in the sky dreaming kind of stuff. Is we actually have you guys actually managed to come up with a way to actually build it. That's awesome.
We built it.
Yeah. How do we join? How do I sign up?
Well, so exactly. So there's two ways that you can do it. There's two kinds of membership in Opolis. The first is an employee member. So when you're ready to be employed, if you have enough income coming in or enough revenue for your business to meet what we call FLSA standards, that's the Fair Labor Standards Act. There are some compliance things that we have to do in order to qualify people for healthcare and things. So as long as you have the minimum required by FLSA in your state coming to you, you can join as an employee member and set up your payroll and do all the things. So if you want to check out that process, you can go to opolis.co, click on the join button, and get started there. And it's a pretty intuitive wizard. You do need to have your LLC or your entity ready to go if you want to join that way. The second way, if you're not quite ready to take that leap, but you're interested in supporting the future of the self-sovereign worker, you can go to opolis.co/coalition. And that's the second kind of member. So the second kind of member is a person or organization, domestic or international, that believes the future is independent and self-sovereign in the terms of work. So when you join the coalition, You won't be paying a fee now, but there is a small nominal fee to be a member of the cooperative, just like going to REI and paying your membership fee. It's a legal thing we have to do. But then once you're in, you can refer people and participate in our tokenization program called Work Rewards. So we've tokenized the concept of patronage, which is a cooperative framework concept. And patronage actually entitles a person to future profits. So in terms of profits for the commons, as we grow, the profits are going to grow. And these work tokens represent your ability to have those profits when the time comes. So you're basically becoming a stakeholder in Opolis just by referring people. And then when you're ready and you're coming into the workforce, you can just become a member as an employee and also get rewards through our process called payroll mining for just consuming your payroll. So you become a value stakeholder in Opolis by just running your payroll and consuming healthcare. So the example that we use is when you go to REI and you pay your $20 or whatever it is to get a membership, then I buy my skis, right? If I buy a pair of skis or a jacket, at the end of the year, they send me a profits or dividends check for those purchases, right? Based on patronage. So in terms of Opolis, what we've done is we've designed a whole economic system. Robert Frost is a
Yeah, but I've never met
poet
him.
there, Josh, if you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's dead.
I know
dude.
of his. I know of his work.
I hope no. You're just being I know of him. Okay, just making sure. Anyway, that's funny. Good job, Josh. We have a saying around Opolis that it's always better to be a smartass than a dumbass.
Love it. Yeah,
Josh is
my
very, very good at that.
I hope to steal that to some other too, and say that to other people someday.
Oh, feel free. You can actually just make sure you credit my mother. She used to say that to me all the time. She'd be like, John, it's always better to be a smartass than a dumbass. And I'm like, good, I like that. So I've used it ever since. So in any case, back to the story here with Opolis, when you consume your payroll, you're getting, based on growth in the ecosystem, there's an emission of tokens that come out to the community based on your patronage for that particular epoch of growth. So it's a really cool gamification, but you're accruing value to yourself by just consuming a service that you already need. So if you hear anything about the ownership economy or all of these sort of new age ways of, creating what we call stakeholder capitalism, this is the first of its kind to tokenize patronage.
That's awesome.
You're seeing that up close and personal.
Even the concept of you own a thing by consuming it, or consuming is owning, is a concept that I'm sure I will spend plenty of time trying to wrap my head around. But yeah, mighty powerful.
Just wait, Sebastian. The entire capitalistic world that we know and that we know right now is going to get reorganized with digital cooperatives. That's my prediction. In the U.S., cross-border will use DAOs, will use other things, but in the U.S., to maintain compliance, you're going to see, if my guess is correct, you're going to see a whole wave of digital cooperatives.
Yeah, we have another question
that are using a similar
chat. Does
framework.
Opolis help people incorporate their own LLCs? So, maybe going back to the college student straight out of college, maybe they have some money saved up to start an LLC or something. Does Opolis help with that?
Yeah, we do. We have a partnership with Incorporate.com. We have negotiated on behalf of our members almost a 60% discount off their regular rates. So it costs you a couple $100 plus your state fees to get set up as an LLC, elected S Corp. And that's about it. So yes, we do help with that. In the future, the goal is not just to have the referral partner, but also have it completely integrated into the stack. So as you're joining, it'll ask you, do you have an LLC S Corp? Yes or no. If you don't, you'll fill all the paperwork, and it'll, without you knowing it, it'll just get it all set up for you, and then it'll just show up in your dashboard when you're ready. So yeah, we're working on making it as simple that a fourth grader could do it. So by the time my daughter gets to fourth grade, she's in first grade now. I've told her that she should be able to have, to be able to onboard herself by doing
fourth
this.
grade, fourth grader with an LLC
we're working
is
on
like mega brain stuff. That's awesome. Yeah. We have a question. Another question. Wyoming DAOs. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of. You saw
Wyoming
about that.
DAOs. Yeah. So I'm friends with the people that did the legislation. So we have a close relationship with the. So a little bit more about us. We have a governor who's the co-founder of Techstars, and our securities commissioner is the former chief counsel for the Ethereum Foundation. So we have a very friendly group of folks at our state level that are in control of some really powerful things. So we've become friends with the Wyoming governor. We actually had the Wyoming governor, his name is Mark Gordon, with Jared Polis, our governor in Colorado, and Vitalik Buterin read a book called B is for Bufficorn, a whimsical journey through Cryptoland, on main stage at ETH Denver in 2020. So like, we know the people that wrote the law in Wyoming. Now, my critique is I'm not sure they really understood all the components of DAOs. When I read through the legislation in my first read, I've got to do a deeper dive, and I'm going to probably put out a critique of it in general publicly. I really think that they missed some of the really core sort of like, when you look at Colorado cooperative law, it really took it as a template. The problem with the DAO laws is it looks very specifically structured toward a couple of particular use cases. So I'm not sure it's going to have any impact on us. I'm not even sure how many DAOs would actually use it at this stage. So we shall see. I got to do a deeper dive on it. But in terms of Opolis, I don't think it has really any impact on that, because what we're using, again, is a cooperative that, if you really look at it, operates a lot like a DAO if you want it to. And if you're using the uniform limited cooperative association framework out of Colorado, you can basically make it work like a DAO if you want.
Sorry, you were talking about execution right before this. And I think at the end of the day, this is really smart, but I'm a little confused. Is this too smart for an average man to understand and actually be involved? Because in the end, you want more and more people to create the community and have the network effect.
Yeah, so our biggest bottleneck right now is kind of very good perception, by the way. It's really easy to get a W-2.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I just got to show up to work and they just send it to me in January, right? Like, that's easy. Okay. That's the kind of easy we're trying to make this. Now, we're not there. The biggest bottleneck we have right now, when you say average man, is the educational component. Like, you guys are way dangerous and smarter than most people when it comes to like thinking about this new age of things. So congratulations for being at least somewhat down the rabbit hole, because I would say most of your peers in college aren't thinking about this. Okay, so you're right. There's actually quite a educational gap in understanding legal, compliance, employment. Now, what we're trying to do is get to a place where we can essentially abstract that away from that being a requirement. Now, the average person who's working in a full-time job and maybe thinking about taking the leap into the freelancer world, but only if there was a framework, that's not quite our existing target audience. That's like phase 2 or phase 3. The people that we're going after right now are those that are already operating independently. We're just making it a lot more efficient for them. They already get the game. They already deal with the accountants. They already they already learned all this stuff. But we do have a significant amount in the DAO space that are doing it for the first time, which is where the education gap comes in. So yeah, over time, our job at the Commons is to create a set of tools and educational materials that's literally so easy and simplified that you could spend a couple of hours and be totally up to speed on it at worst, without even really needing to speak with
someone. The goal. Yeah,
you
totally.
can do it on your own.
That's awesome.
Self-serve.
Thank you so much.
That's the
I
goal.
think we're actually 10 minutes over already, and I'm sure if people let us, we'd talk forever. But yeah, if there are any other questions that people have from the audience, otherwise we can maybe move to the networking portion.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, our pleasure, 100%. I mean, we love, you know, promoting the future of work and talking about like the real opportunities that we have to collectively make a really big impact in the world and a new vector of opportunity using technology as our political tools. Because I think that's if you think about the political landscape today, it's really binary and it's really ugly. This is how we create the future, using technology as a new vector of political tools. So pay attention to Governor Jared Polis. Pay attention to people who are really making technology a functional part of their platform. We don't see a lot of it now, but my prediction is in the next 3 to 6 cycles, you're going to see a lot more of it.
Totally. Thank you so much.
You're going to see a ton more of it.
It's going to be an awesome future, and we're all going to be a part of it. Yes, to answer your question, Josh, we do. We are not yet a DAO. That is a thing that will happen in the future. We're already
Do you need help setting that up? Because we know a few people that can help you.
I strongly,
but
yeah, I highly recommend using DAO House. They've got a new XDAI DAO product that's out, and it works really well.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a Moloch fork, and it's really pretty awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, of course.
Yep, and thank you for all the guests, or I mean the different hosts. Really appreciate you guys, all the CMU folks, coming out here and doing this. So next steps: turn on your mic and camera. We'd love for you to stick around. We'll just be talking about cool stuff and kind of continuing this conversation in the networking and any news with Beth. Yeah, a bunch of cool stuff is happening, but we'll kind of update you via Discord. Join or become a member. I dropped membership in the chat. Just did it again. It's completely free. We got people pretty big jobs today. I just placed someone at Protocol Labs as a new little piece of news, which is dope. So we're working hard on trying to push people into the world of crypto here. So
yeah.
We need a couple of developers. If you guys know anybody with Python experience,
send me.
We'd love to talk to you. We got a product role open. We got a.
Okay. Yeah, I can share the details.
Send, or do you want to chat?
You just sent us an email, so you've got it.
Hey, Joshua and John, feel free to become a BAF member.
Oh yeah, I've got you.
You guys can also chat in Discord if you're interested. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, if Marina's still here, I wanted to address her question about jobs that maybe no one would want. I think this question is twofold. First, in that if the passion economy is fully realized, then potentially there might be these jobs that no one wants that pop up. But until then, we don't really know what they are yet. And another point I wanted to bring up is just because one job is undesirable to someone doesn't mean that it's undesirable to everyone,
Yeah. Can I give you
love that show.
Have you guys ever seen Undercover Boss? Okay, there was one for waste management. Okay, they do the porta potties at like concerts and stuff. The CEO went out and watched like his employees. He went and cleaned porta potties with these people at these like concert venues and stuff. This one guy, I mean, imagine wanting that job, right? But to your point, Chanel, this guy did this job with such passion and such integration. To the average person, most people, 99% of people, we wouldn't want to touch that job. But he just did it with such passion and excellence. Now, he ended up getting promotions and all sorts of other cool things happened to him. But like that was a really good example of your point on how a job that one person might find undesirable, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Particularly,
it's
there's
really
a show,
hard
I
to
think
standardize what we
probably
see as a
discontinued now. It's
desirable
called
job.
Dirty Jobs, and it specifically follows around these types of jobs that people would think, I would never do that in a million years. But you'd be surprised at how many people are passionate about many, many different things. And let's say there is that small case where there are jobs that are completely undesirable to everyone. But if that job still needs to be done and it brings value to the world, then that's all the more incentives to find some way to automate it and get it done.
Yeah, so undesirable jobs, as they start to surface, you're going to find that getting people to do them is going to be hard. So in a marketplace standpoint, you're going to see higher wages.
Of course, we don't want to undersell automation.
So you're going to see.
Right, because like I think the prime candidates for automation are jobs that are dull, dirty, and difficult. The 3 Ds of automation.
Yeah, we're gonna see the advent of what I call the creative, the creation of more creative roles, right? Not just in terms of art and writing and dancing and singing and traditional art, but like in terms of a person's creativity. So you're going to see a lot more of that type of integration than we see today. But Marina, I don't necessarily disagree. Like there are going to be certain jobs that like it's going to be hard to get people to do them. But this is a free market, right? Like, why are we protecting jobs from obsolescence? If they're terrible, if they're so bad that nobody literally will do them, then I see no use for them. Unless you want to get paid a ton of money to do it. For example, I can tell you about like guys that are working in the oil industry as like rig foremen offshore in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're dirty, nasty, dangerous jobs, but they get paid like $200 an hour. And they're like, YOLO, man, I'm doing it. You know, it's like, fine, if that's what you want to do. I mean, it's a free market, right? So, yeah, well, nobody said you suggested protection, Marina, but you know, there are some broad statements you've made. Like there are some jobs that no one wants to do. And I'm not sure you could know that at this stage. Like that's just not possible to know. So I think what we're saying is that it's kind of yet to be seen. There's still sort of a lot of evolution that's going to happen. But as these roles pop up that become obvious that nobody wants to do, then they're either going to get automated, abstracted away, become obsolete. But you don't know they exist, Marina. I'm not trying to be difficult, but you can't know that. Like, give me one example of a job that no one literally wants to do. That's the only point I'm making. I'm not trying to be difficult here. I'm just saying that, like, you know, it doesn't exist in absolutes that way.
I was going to say the whole, like, when you are really enjoying what you're doing, then it's not work. And so people are going to continue trying to look for different things until they find that job that is not work, and everybody else is stuck in a job that they don't want to do.
Well, if you look at the word enjoy, it's about that joy, right? So when you're in joy and you're connected with work that connects with you, even if it's cleaning porta potties, but you're enjoying yourself, who is anybody else to judge that? Sorry, but like, you know, this is you know, we can't get in our own headspace and our own confirmation biases of what is a good job or a bad job. I mean, everybody can find joy different ways.
Thank you, everyone, again. Hope to see you in networking. And yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.